Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Hello students, I am Tanushree Shahadas Gupta, Professor and Associate Dean in S.N. Bose National Center for Basic Sciences in Kolkata. I belong to the Department of Condensed Matter Physics and Material Science. I am also the coordinator of the thematic unit of excellence on computational material science set up within S.N. Bose Center. In this lecture, we'll elaborate on Hartree-Fock theory and discuss few important concepts associated with Hartree-Fock theory. In particular, we'll discuss Koopman theorem, which says that in closed shell Hartree-Fock theory, the first ionization energy of a molecular system is equal to the negative of the orbital energy of the highest occupied molecular orbital. Koopman's theorem is named after Charles Koopmans, who is a Dutch-American mathematician and economics. He published this result in 1934. Koopmans became a Nobel laureate in the year 1975, jointly with Leonid. Interestingly, neither in physics nor in chemistry, but in economics. We'll also discuss the concept of exchange or Fermi hole, which relies on the idea of the anti-symmetrized form of the wave function. As you know, Pauli exclusion principle is the rule that no more than two electrons can be in the same orbital. The rule traces to a deep algebraic properties of nature that has nothing whatsoever to do with the charge on the electrons. The essence is that many electron wave functions must change sign when labels on any two electrons are interchanged. The essential consequence of this is that the electrons stay out of one another's way, forming what is called a Fermi hole, having a depletion region of charge around each electron. Since electrons repel one another electrically, Fermi holes have drastic effects on the energy of the many electron atoms. Further, we will discuss two important formulations of Hartree-Fock theory, namely the restricted and unrestricted Hartree-Fock theory. The unrestricted Hartree-Fock theory is the most common molecular orbital method for open shell molecules where the number of electrons of each spin are not equal. When restricted Hartree-Fock theory uses a single molecular orbital twice, once multiplied by the alpha spin function and another times multiplied by the beta spin function in the Slater determinant, the unrestricted Hartree-Fock theory uses different molecular orbitals for the alpha and beta electrons. The unrestricted Hartree-Fock method has one drawback though. A single Slater determinant of different orbitals for different spins is not a satisfactory eigenfunction of the total spin operator. The ground state is thus contaminated by excited states, as we will discuss. Despite this drawback, the unrestricted Hartree-Fock method is used frequently and in preference to the restricted open shell Hartree-Fock method because unrestricted Hartree-Fock is simpler to code, easier to develop the post-Hartree-Fock methods with, and returns the unique functions unlike restricted Hartree-Fock method. Where different Fock operators can give the same final wave function. Unrestricted Hartree-Fock theory was discovered by Gaston Berthier and subsequently developed by John Pople. It is found almost in all ab initio programs. With this brief introduction, we now move on to the details, which will deal with the mathematical formulation of the concepts that we have just discussed. The objectives in this lecture are the following. We'll first discuss the Koopman's theorem, the theorem which relates the energy eigenvalue in the Hartree-Fock theory to the energy required to bring an electron from infinity to a particular single electron state. We'll discuss the applicability of this theorem. We'll discuss in particular the exchange charge density, which is a quantity that arises due to the antisymmetric wave function concept which was introduced in the Hartree-Fock theory. We'll also discuss what is a Fermi hole. We'll discuss two important formulations of the Hartree-Fock theory, namely the restricted and unrestricted Hartree-Fock. We'll discuss the necessity of Hartree-Fock theory. Let us first start with the history. Charles Koopmans, the photo of whom is shown in the left side of the slide, was born in the year 1910 and he passed away in the year 1985. He was a Dutch-American mathematician and economist, the joint winner of the Nobel Prize in the year 1975. Koopman's early works on Hartree-Fock theory are associated with Koopman's theorem, which is very well known in quantum chemistry and which we are going to discuss in the following slides. The Nobel Prize obtained by Koopmans was, however, interestingly, for economics, for which his contribution to the fields of resource allocation, specifically the theory of optimal use of resources. To discuss the Koopman's theorem, let us start with the single electron Schrödinger equation in Hartree-Fock as is given by this equation little h plus f times psi equal to epsilon times psi. What Koopman's theorem says is the following, that this epsilon ak is the negative of the energy required to remove an electron in the state psi ak from the solid. In this, we assume that the single electron wave function to be of Bloch type, that is, the spatial part of the wave function is delocalized in space. According to the Hartree-Fock theory, the single particle operators, which depends on the coordinates of the single electron, a part of it is given by this little h, which is a function of x, where x contains both space and spin, is given by these two terms. And then we have this operator f, which also depends on the single coordinate x, given by this following expression. F is, as you remember, is the part added from the electron-electron repulsion, but written in a single particle form. We assume, firstly, the system is large and removal of one electron does not affect the others. We thus can use the same single electron wave function for n minus 1 electron case as in n electron case. Thus, we can write the energy of the n electron system which is given by summation over I, Ai, H Ai, plus half summation Ai, Aj, V AI AJ minus AJ AI V AI AJ. This expression we have already derived in the previous lecture, and that of the n minus electron system of its energy is given by En minus 1, which is exactly same as the previous expression, except in the summation does not contain the term which is given by K, because it is the kth electron that has been removed from the system. The difference of these two energy, En and En minus 1, is therefore given by AKHAK plus half summation over J, where the summation over J doesn't include K, AKAJ V AKAJ minus AJAK V AKAJ. This energy difference, which is given by this left hand side of this equation, En minus 1, and in the right hand side it's written in longhand, this energy difference in the wave function form, after a few lines of mathematics can be shown as this energy difference is exactly equal to epsilon k or epsilon ak, which is basically the energy, the eigenenergy of this electron at the single electron state ak. Thus we can write En is equal to En minus 1 plus epsilon k or ak. Note epsilon k or ak is the energy to bring an electron from infinity to the state psi ak. Epsilon I minus epsilon j is therefore the energy required to take an electron from the state given by psi ai to the state psi aj. We note that this is valid only for delocalized extended system, for example, that in case of metals. The Hartree-Fock potential, as derived in the previous class, is given by this following expression. If we take this expression and sum over spins, we see that this actually consists of three contributing terms which are shown in three different colors as term 1, 2 and 3. This term 1, as we will discuss in the next slide, and as we know, comes from the potential which is given by the nuclei. The second term is the Hartree term, while the third term is the term that arises out of exchange. The term 1, as mentioned already, it represents the interaction of electron with nucleus. The second term represents the interaction of electron with a charge density given by rho r prime, where rho r prime is equal to minus E, where E is the charge of the electron, summation over J modular square of phi aj. And this is shown schematically in this figure below, where this charge of E at position R is interacting with this charge density rho r prime, which is sitting at R prime. The last or the third term in this Hartree-Fock potential represents the interaction energy of electron of charge E and a fictitious charge distribution of density which is given by rho x r prime, and this expression which is shown in this right hand side of this equation. Note in this summation, which is the summation over J, this sum are over these electrons whose spin is parallel to that of the electron in the state K or AK, and this is what is shown with this notation parallel. Note that this charge density, firstly, is non-local, and secondly, it depends on this label AK. So, this exchange charge density is specific for the electron in the specific state psi ak. The charge density discussed in previous slide, which is known as the exchange charge density, has the following properties. Firstly, it is totally fictitious charge. If we take this rho x, the expression for this exchange charge density, and integrate over the space coordinate r prime, one gets the integrated quantity E, which is the charge of one electron but with a positive sign. For r equal to r prime, this exchange charge density, using the expression that was given in the previous slide, is given by E summation over j modulo square of phi aj square, which is the charge density at the position of the electron. Assuming these wave functions phi are of the form of plane wave, which is normalized over a volume omega, one gets this expression for this exchange charge density at r equal to r prime, given by E over omega summation over j times 1. For a non-magnetic system where the number of up-spin electrons is same as the number of down-spin electron, one have the n spin up equal to n spin down equal to n by 2, where n is the total number of electrons. If we assume such a non-magnetic situation, then the exchange charge density at r equal to r prime is given by Ne divided by 2 omega. Since this total integrated charge, as mentioned in the first point, should be equal to the charge of a single electron with a positive sign, while at origin one has this high value, one can easily imagine that this exchange charge density has to fall off very, very sharply in space, as is shown in this figure. Thus, each electron is surrounded by fictitious positive charge cloud of total charge E and also is of limited dimension. This is known as exchange or Fermi hole. This is called hole as it is of positive sign, which can be considered as depletion of electronic charge. It is of interest to know what is the extension of this Fermi hole. The qualitative estimate of the extension of Fermi hole can be obtained by considering a uniform density, as is in the position of the electron. That means we assume the rho x at r not equal to r prime given by the same expression as rho x r equal to r prime, which has been already derived. And we assume that the capital R is the dimension of the Fermi hole. Then if we take this exchange charge density and integrate over the space coordinate r prime, one should get this value as E. Then using this expression for rho x at r equal to r prime and substituting here, one should get the expression Ne divided by 2 omega times the spherical volume of this Fermi hole, which is given by 4/3 pi capital R cube, where R is the extension of this Fermi hole. From this equation, one then gets the extension of the hole, which is given by capital R equal to 3 by 2 pi times n over omega to the power 1/3, and assuming that n over omega is about 10 to the power 23, the Avogadro number, this gives rise to an extension of 4 times 10 to the power minus 3 centimeter. The essential properties of the Fermi hole can be summarized as the following. Firstly, the region over which the Fermi hole has appreciable effect is rather small. Due to the presence of exchange hole, Coulomb repulsion between two parallel electrons is reduced. Exchange acts effectively as an attractive interaction. And as is shown here, it depends on the level AK, because in the right hand side, as is shown here, the summation depends on those electrons which are parallel, having parallel spin to that of the AK or the kth electron. The fact that Fermi hole has total charge of plus C therefore does not necessarily mean that all electrons undergo the same exchange. Exchange density is different for different electrons, especially if n spin up is not equal to n spin down. That means the number of up spin electron is not the same as the number of down spin electron, though the total exchange charge is of amount plus E. Exchange interaction plays an important role in the first Hund's rule for atoms and ions, which says the ground multiplet state of a given electronic configuration will be of maximum allowed spin as permitted by Pauli's principle. From the viewpoint of the Hartree-Fock model, we have the following. Maximum spin configuration produces maximum number of exchange interactions among electrons in open shell. Exchange reduces the positive energy associated with Coulomb repulsions. This thus gives rise to the ground state following Hund's rule. We now turn to the discussion on restricted and unrestricted configuration, which is as shown in this figure, can be defined in the following sense. Let's start with the restricted configuration. These are the configurations which restrict both spins alpha and beta to have the same spatial orbital. As shown in the left panel of the figure, the states from labeled by psi1 until psi4 are occupied by both up and down spin. Therefore, the spatial part of these orbitals associated with both up and down spin are the same. The second category is the unrestricted configuration, which is shown in the right hand panel of the figure. It allows each spin labeled as alpha and beta to have a different spatial orbital, which is shown with a different color. So for the beta kind of spin, the spatial orbitals from psi1 to psi4, they are different from the spatial orbital associated with alpha kind of spin given by psi1 till psi4. So each of this description has some advantages as well as some drawbacks, as we will discuss in the following. Restricted open shell wave functions have correct and well-defined value of the total spin. For example, s equal to 0, half, 1, etc. That's singlet, doublet, triplet, etc. In the language of quantum mechanics, they are the eigenfunctions of the total spin operator S square. These configurations, that's the restricted configuration, therefore do not take into account the spin polarization. In cases, the wave function with proper spin and antisymmetry cannot be described as a single Slater determinant. For example, proper wave function for an open shell singlet, such as the singlet state of an oxygen molecule, is given by this following expression, which has both space part and the spins part. Because it's a singlet, the spin part is written with this negative sign in this combination, singlet combination. Since the entire wave function should be antisymmetric, therefore the combination in the space part is with a positive sign or plus sign. This has to be written, you can convince yourself, as linear combination of two determinants. Focusing on unrestricted configurations, unrestricted wave functions allow different spatial distribution for electrons with alpha spins and beta spins, and therefore can describe importantly the spin polarization. Unfortunately, unrestricted wave functions do not have the proper and well-defined value of spin. That is, they are not eigenfunctions of A square. They suffer from the concept which goes with the name as spin contamination. What it means, the singlet state can have an admixture of triplet quintet state, for example. Focusing on restricted Hartree-Fock, we start from the Hartree-Fock equation, which is given by H plus F times psi equal to epsilon psi, where psi is given by this expression, which is phi times chi, where phi is the spatial part and chi is the spin part. And chi can be like alpha or beta with the spin variable eta, which can be either +1 or -1. Note here we have used the same orbital part, the phi, for both eta 1, +1 and -1, that is for spin up and spin down. Thus one would have the Fock operator, the F, operated on psi given by this following set of equation, which is shown in the first and second line in the right hand side. Now we have the FR, which must be same for both up spin and down spin, since spin up and spin down is attached to the same orbital. The second term in the equation, which was shown in the previous slide, makes it different if n spin up is not equal to n spin down. That means the number of up spin electron is different from the number of down spin electron. One thus needs to make an average potential, which is shown here and which is given by this F bar, which is nothing but half of F up and F down. For atoms and ions, one needs to make further assumption of spherical symmetry because this atomic potential should be spherically symmetric. So this can be obtained by making a spherical averaging, where one takes this F bar and integrates it over the angular variable, which is shown here. So it's given by 1 over 4 pi integration of F bar d omega, where omega is this angular coordinate. Where now the wave function psi ak has these quantum numbers NLM like in a hydrogen atom. So it is given by phi NLM, and which has the radial part, which is shown here, and the spherical harmonics. This gives the shell structure of atoms. Now, what is the necessity of using the unrestricted Hartree-Fock? Whether one would use a restricted or unrestricted Hartree-Fock calculation, it entirely depends on the type of quantity one needs to calculate, and therefore depends on the type of experimental data which one tries to reproduce. For example, take the case of the Fermi contact term in hyperfine interaction, which is given by this expression, the hyperfine interaction, the contact term, which is designated as Hc, is nothing but the difference of the spin up electronic density and the spin down electronic density at the nucleus, which is shown here like 0, and the first term represents the spin up electron density at the nucleus, and the second term represents the spin down electron density at the nucleus. Let us take the case of lithium, which has the valence configuration 1s2, 2s. For the restricted Hartree-Fock, as you can see, the contribution to this contact term Hc comes only from 2s electron, because for 1s2 one has both upspin and a downspin, and since in the restricted Hartree-Fock description one uses the same orbital for the upspin and downspin, the contribution of the first term and the second term in this contact term is 0. Therefore, one is left with only the contribution from 2s. This gives only 72% of the experimental value, although the total energy calculated within the restricted Hartree-Fock formalism comes out to be rather correct. For unrestricted Hartree-Fock, on the other hand, the contribution to Hc comes also from 1s in addition to 2s, as the orbital part corresponding to the upspin and downspin, they are different. Therefore, the contribution of the first term and the second term in Hc, they don't cancel each other. This gives 97% of the experimental value. Next, take another example, that of manganese, which is of valence configuration 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 2p5. In the restricted Hartree-Fock formalism, there is no contribution from 1s2, 2s2, 2p6 and 3s2, simply because these shells are filled with both up and down electron, and since it is the same orbital part which is associated with the upspin and downspin, the total contribution from all these filled shells are 0. However, for L quantum number not equal to 0, for example the p electrons, the radial part of the wave function goes to 0 at the origin. Therefore, the p shell cannot contribute to this contact term. Thus, the contribution comes only from s electrons. So, according to the restricted Hartree-Fock formulation, it should give a 0 value for Hc, the contact term. So, one would get only a non-zero value of Hc if one uses the unrestricted Hartree-Fock, and which actually agrees with the experiment because experiment actually measures a non-zero value for this contact term. This in turn highlights the necessity of use of the unrestricted Hartree-Fock theory. Unrestricted Hartree-Fock theory is almost exclusively used for the open shell problems. To permit the alpha and beta spins to occupy different regions of space, it is necessary to treat them individually in the construction of molecular orbitals. Alpha and beta electrons are in different orbitals, resulting into two sets of expansion coefficient as is shown here. So we now have psi alpha, which is a summation over this phi with this coefficient given by C alpha. And then we have another set which is psi beta, which is again summation over this phi's, but now the expansion coefficient is C beta. We need to remember that this index I now runs from 1 to n by 2, where n is the total number of electrons. So we have the set of these orbitals which corresponds to this alpha spin and another set that corresponds to the beta spin. So these two sets of coefficients give two sets of Fock matrices and their associated density matrix, and finally to a solution producing two sets of orbitals. The individual orbitals are found by carrying out separate Hartree-Fock calculations for each spin with spin-specific Fock operator, thus F, and this entire formalism and the equation, they go with the name of Pople-Nesbitt equations or the Pople-Nesbitt formalism. To summarize, Koopman's theorem tells that if we assume that the wave function does not change when we excite an electron above the ground state, one can prove that the energy required to add the electron to an excited state is precisely given by epsilon k, which are the eigenvalues of the Hamiltonian given by the Hartree-Fock. The exchange part of the Hartree-Fock potential gives rise to the concept of Fermi hole. That's each electron is surrounded by a fictitious positive charge cloud of total charge plus E and of limited dimension. Lastly, we discussed the restricted and unrestricted formulations of Hartree-Fock theory. The applicability of one over the other, as we discussed, depends on the choice of the problem.